how bad are NBA defenses today? Let's just break it down. The defenses that we see. I know everyone wants to talk about the 80s and 90s, how they're defensively they were just dominant. Teams were not scoring; it was hard to score. But that's not really the true story of the matter. In the 80s, that they were getting up and down. There was a lot of high scoring games. The 80s were pretty high scoring. If people actually go look back at the data, the 80s were a high scoring era. In the 90s, it started off, with that high scoring, and then it tailed off towards the end where teams started to play slower. It creeped up all the way up into the 2000s and almost to the 2010s. The teams were not scoring at will. In the 2000s, the Pistons were giving up less than 80 points a game. Like it was not what people think it was. They think whenever LeBron played, it was easy. That's just how we have made this narrative that whenever LeBron played it was easy, and that's just not the case. So as we look at defenses today, they're a little bit more complicated. I know they're scoring, they're seeing a lot of their skills, a lot of one-on-one, isolating players, doing pick and rolls, and it may seem like it's easy. I know Giannis, Jokic, and Luka was saying how easy it is to score in the NBA today. Because when you have shooters, you have to make sure you honor that. That's why I have always said that centers of the past will have trouble today because all of these centers are guards, basically. They have guard skills. They're so talented. They're not as dominant in the post as the 80s and 90s and even the 2000 players. There's no one going to be as dominant as Tim Duncan in the post. Patrick Ewing, Shaquille, Hakeem, Kareem. There's not no players today who can be as dominant in the post as those players. And that's where the game has been moving away from, is the back to the basket type of post players. And the reason, because now you could load up in the zone. Since the rule changed, now you can load up in the zone, and to just have everyone free to work, you have to continue to develop our big mans as more of a guard type players who can handle the ball, who can shoot, who can actually go up to the 3-point line and move their feet from side to side. Just an example, he's a good player. He's not a great player, but Tristan Thompson from the Cavs from a year ago. He was one of the big men who could contest a 3-point shot. He would go out there, put his hands up. He could move side to side when a guard is up there. He could contest a 3-point shot. Then you look at someone like Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing cannot contest a 3-point shot just like that. So that, they moved away from more players, even though I'm not saying that Tristan Thompson's a better defender or anything than Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing is a 100 times better player than Tristan Thompson, but it's just the way that the game has gone that we expect the centers to do those things. We have Anthony Davis right now being a center, and there's a lot of other big men who are surpassing Anthony Davis because they can move better than Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis, up until the last couple of years, was a small forward type power forward. He could move, he could do this, he could do that, he could dribble off but the game has become so skilled and in some instances so finesse that it may seem like the NBA game is soft because they're not really hard fouling anybody, which is great for the game. We don't really want our star players being hurt. Why would we want our star players going to the lane getting hurt? That's just, these players jump too high. They're too fast. They're not moving at a slower pace that you can't foul them anymore. They're more athletic. So the game has been cleaned up a lot. It started in the 90s. The game is starting to get cleaned up. And we saw how when the game was cleaned up, how Jordan could do what he needs to do without worrying about a clothesline. He can actually go to the hole without worrying about, if someone's going to try to take my legs from under me. He can actually play basketball. Michael Jordan playing basketball, and the NBA saw okay, let's let our players actually play basketball. Let's not go out there and try to, hurt our star players because that's bad for our game. So do I think the NBA game has gotten soft? I don't really believe they got it soft. I don't really like the tic tac fouls. That's kind of ruining the game, and all of the acting that the players are doing kind of ruining the game. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of the NBA today. I'm definitely a big fan of NBA, but I'm not a big fan of certain things that the players are allowed to get away from. I know they was doing the fines for flopping and all the other things, but still players are baiting the referees into doing certain things, and that is something that should not be a part of the game. All of the flopping should not be a part of the game. I know everyone talks about LeBron James being the biggest flopper in the world. Like, I don't know what they're watching. There's so many other players who flop way more than LeBron. LeBron tries to flop because he doesn't get the calls that he thinks he should get. I know he said it a few weeks ago how he should work on being a better flopper, which is LeBron's pretty terrible flopper. He tries to flop and he don't really get the call because either they're just not going to call a foul for him anyway, no matter if he gets hit or not. But to me, the game has not gotten soft. But the other NBA players from the past, you look at TNT, all they talk about is how the players are soft, which I do not believe. The game is great. I just wish they would clean up a few things. But they trying to clean it up every year because the NBA players try to take advantage of things like that rip through move. They're still doing it today, and it's like a ball out. I think that should not even be called. That should be a turnover. In my opinion, it should be a turnover.